So first, I just want to welcome everyone to the Safe Routes to School Coaching Action Network webinar. My name is Michelle Gully. I'm the program coordinator, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. And I do want to just mention, Laura, if you can hear me, but obviously we can't hear you. Don't panic. I'll get to you in just a moment once I just get things rolling. So for everyone who hasn't joined us before, this call is a part of a series of webinars developed by America Walks and the National Center for Safe Routes to School. The goal of this program is to educate individuals and organizations on topics that may boost the overall success of the Safe Routes to School projects across the United States. The National Center for Safe Routes to School and this program have both been made possible by funding from the Federal Highway Administration. Before we get started, I do want to go over just a few administrative details. Please note that all of our phone lines are muted, which is why we're having a little bit of trouble with one of our speakers. Due to the large number of participants that we have on these calls, this helps us to cut down on the background noise and avoid confusion. If you have a question during the webinar, please use the question and answer box on your computer screen. As facilitator, I'll read the questions as they come in and respond if I'm able. If you cannot access the webinar program at all, but you need to contact me, and obviously you can hear me right now, please send me an email at mgully@americawalks.org. That's mgulley@americawalks.org. Also note that this webinar is being recorded, so if you cannot access the program at all and you have a complete computer failure, you'll have a chance to download it at a later time from the America Walks website and the National Center website, and those two addresses are www.americawalks.org and www.saferoutesinfo.org. And both of those websites will be posted at the end, and I'll repeat them at the end as well. So please feel free to write them down at a later time. Now, questions pertaining to the actual subject matter of the presentation may be entered at any time during the presentation, but will be addressed at the end. We do try to leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the call to address as many questions as we can. We do ask that if you have a question about Safe Routes to School that does not pertain to today's topic, that you please submit those directly to the National Center for Safe Routes to School via their website in the Ask a Question section on their navigation bar. And again, that address is www.saferoutesinfo.org. So again, I just want to repeat, if you were unable to get all of that information down, because I know it was a lot, don't worry, it will be posted again at the end. So now I want to just turn your attention to your computer screen. You should see the agenda up there, and you'll see that we've already gone over the first item, which is the welcome and administrative details. We are next going to dive right into our feature presentation, which is ways to involve law enforcement in Safe Routes to School. And we're going to start with Katie Mencarini. She's a planner from Tool Design Group, and she's also representing the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration today and the National Center for Safe Routes to School. Following Katie will be Laura Aceta from Weed and Seed Site Coordinator of Easton, Pennsylvania, and then that will be followed by hopefully about 10 or 15 minutes of question and answer. So with that, I'm now going to turn the screen over to Katie. So just give me one moment to take care of that. Okay, and while Katie is getting set up, let me just check again. Laura, do we have you on the line yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. See, it all works out. So just sit tight. I can hear you loud and clear. We'll let Katie get through her part of the program, and then we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great.
All righty. My name is Katie Mencarini. I work for I am a planner for Tool Design Group, which is a pedestrian and bicycle planning and design firm. We specialize in helping with pedestrian and bicycle needs. In that capacity, I've worked with local Safe Routes to School programs, helping them get their Safe Routes to School action plans off the ground and facilitating them with their workshops and their meetings. And as Michelle mentioned, I also worked with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, also known as NHTSA, with developing a resource, which is a Safe Routes to School guide specifically tailored to law enforcement professionals. And I also work with the National Center for Safe Routes to School with other troubleshooting needs. So this is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. All right, so what I want to talk to you about today is how to engage and sustain law enforcement participation in your Safe Routes to School programs, activities, and plans. And I think that it can be a pretty tricky problem, so I've addressed it in three ways. The first thing I want to go over is understanding where law enforcement officers and professionals fit into the role of Safe Routes to School. And also I want to talk about some resources that are out there, what you can point them to, and what they can use to help you with your programs. And the third are just some tips and lessons learned from myself and my colleagues about engaging and sustaining law enforcement officer involvement. So the first one, as I mentioned, would be figuring out where law enforcement professionals fit into your program. What do you want them to do for you? To make sure we're all on the same page, I wanted to address what we call the 5 E's of safe routes to school. Encouraging students to walk and bicycle to school can have some tricky implications. It's a pretty complex problem. So what we'll often do is we look at the 5 elements comprehensively, which are education, encouragement, engineering, enforcement, and evaluation. So most plans that you'll see or most strategies will address some or all of these E's. So of course, law enforcement officers fit into the enforcement category. You wouldn't want your average citizen trying to enforce traffic speeds or even pedestrian laws. That's something for them to do. That's clearly outlined in their purview. They are also really great for monitoring crossing guards if they have received traffic control training and would be used in that role. So they would be a great person to let you know how they're doing and how that's working. Education is another great E for them to get involved in. Students already recognize them as authority figures and as people that they respect. You'll often notice with children when you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Police officer is usually in the top 5. So they're a great resource for getting safety messages across to students. They're also really great with parents. We are all taught to respect our police officers and to respect their point of view and their knowledge base. So they're great for addressing parents maybe on a back-to-school night. And likewise, they know their community inside and out, and they can be a great person to rally around and really get them to explain safety issues in your area. So they can be used to address students, parents, and your community at large. They can also be used in the fun stuff, too. They are great for bike rodeos. Actually, most of my experience with having them involved in specific activities outside of the normal enforcement role tend to be bike rodeos. One reason that I've found is that they often will have public outreach types of activities or events, and sometimes that can include a bike registration program. And oftentimes with bike rodeos, you encourage students to bring their own bikes to learn how to ride safely. And likewise, police officers like to make sure that their students are getting the safety messages that they need, so this is a great way for them to be personally involved. They're great speakers for Walk to School Day, talking both about how fun it is, but also how you can do it safely. So I would encourage you to consider asking them to be a guest speaker or even just come and watch. The third is a copy and good program, which I love. I actually found it first when I was in Delaware. There was I'm gonna out him. His name is Lieutenant Kelly of Middletown, and he is a fabulous police officer. And his idea was that he realized that oftentimes police officers are associated with negative things. They give out citations or they say what you shouldn't be doing. And so what he decided to do is he partnered with local businesses to get coupons for, say, a free ice cream cone or a free bike fitting helmet or something of that nature. And when he sees a child doing something good, for instance, maybe they're riding their bike while wearing a helmet, or they're crossing the street with looking both ways first, or encouraging other students to behave in a safe way, they're given this coupon. And so it shows that they're doing something right and that they should be rewarded for it. And they also get to see police officers in a very positive, friendly role, which is great for the long term as well. So we've talked a little bit about where they might fit into your program. So I want to show you some of the resources that are out there for once you have their ear, how to get them involved. One of the things that has probably inspired a lot of these resources is that we have some challenges with approaching law enforcement officers. And I should mention that this is just part of the job. This isn't anyone's fault. This isn't anyone with any sort of neglect or bad feelings, but these are just kind of the nature of the issues that we saw when trying to engage law enforcement officers. Like any field, they have their own jargon and their own language where we may be saying the same words, but it's not being communicated clearly. Also, we noticed that a lot of law enforcement officers really focus their training on, when it comes to traffic laws, on vehicles. They may not know pedestrian and bicycle laws, and so they're either, in the worst case scenarios, maybe enforcing it incorrectly or not at all. So we need to make sure that everyone's being accountable for their actions, so we'd like them to know more about that. We've also heard from several people that advocates don't always know how to approach law enforcement officers. They're often very busy individuals, and it's hard to know about the timing and how to approach the subject. And finally, bike and pedestrian safety isn't always just emphasized in general in there, so they may not even know about some of the safety messages that you'd want them to communicate. So with that in mind, NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, decided to develop a companion guide for the National Center for Safe Routes to School Guide that tailors it to law enforcement. And it serves two purposes. It's supposed to help advocates better broach the subject with police officers, but also help police officers get revved up about it and see where they fit. So we're hoping to bridge that gap. One thing I want to mention is I'm going to go through some of the highlights about this online guide, and I'm going to keep the URL at the bottom so you don't have to feel like you need to rush to write it down right at this moment. So with that said, I want to introduce you to this resource and how you can use it and how it can be effective for you. So the first thing with researching how to make this guide, we found out that the police officer spectrum is not one note. There's actually a lot of different ways that a police officer has a role in their enforcement field. So we wanted to make sure that our resource tailored to that. We didn't want to paint with one big stroke. So if we were to go over here, we've shown the ways to get involved, and we actually pieced it out by the type of law enforcement officer that you might be or that you might be talking to. So if we click on the law enforcement executives link, it takes you to a page that's tailored to law enforcement executives. And to make sure I'm being clear, law enforcement executives are your chiefs, your captains, your sheriffs, vice sheriffs, people that are really high up there in their department. They are really great for speaking roles because they have a lot of respect within their own department and in the community. But one of the things we also need to recognize is that these are the people that are probably going to be the most busy. They're probably available for one-time events, but they may not be able to be involved in your program long-term. So that's something that the advocate needs to know and something that we want to make sure we know about the police officers. So every page of the type of law enforcement officer that we're talking about has a little blurb about what Safe Routes to School is, and then there's a list of ways they can get involved. And again, this is helpful for you as the advocate to tell them how you would like them to be involved. These are some great tips for the ways to get this type of officer involved. But also it lets them know, okay, if I'm interested in getting involved in a local Safe Routes to School program, where can I be most effective? Further down on this page, we've identified resources for them to get started. And we've also pointed them to the funding page, and we want to communicate to them that Safe Routes to School can work for them just as they can work for us. And we want to show that there's a partnership there. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next part of the website that I think would be helpful. There's this block here over to the left that's the Federal Safe Routes to School program. And what this does is it breaks down the program and all kind of the elements of it and tailors it to law enforcement officers. Again, so we're really trying to show them where they fit. The first link is understanding the Federal Safe Routes to School program and what it means for them. The second is mostly for advocates, actually, enlist enforcement Safe Routes to School programs. So this is ways that you can get them involved. Funding has a couple of eligible funding activities. It also just talks about how funding happens through the Safe Routes to School program, so it's a good orientation page. And fourth, are the case study examples. These are areas where people have successfully recruited law enforcement officers and they've been effective in their areas. You can point to these or they can check them out to see what are some successes for law enforcement officers. Lastly, I want to point you to the resources and handout section. This is probably my favorite part. This is really the meat of the guide. This is really what drove us to making it. So if we click here, what this is all of the resources and handouts that a law enforcement officer might need once they've been recruited for a Safe Routes to School program, activity, or plan. So for instance, a lot of times you'll want to ask them to speak at your event, and you can point them to this section, and they can find talking points, and we've even tailored them for the audience. So we have talking points for parents, talking points for kids, and it can either be read as a speech straight through, or they can customize it how they want. If you have a Safe Routes to School, a law enforcement officer who's familiar with Safe Routes to School and they just need some facts to pepper an existing speech that they've made before, something they already have in mind, that's fine too. We have facts pages. We have other ways that they can get familiar about the Safe Routes to School program and issues that it has today. We have tips for them. We have curriculums for them. If they want to start a bike rodeo, we have an organizer's guide for that. There are videos, maybe if they just want to learn on a couple of skill sets on how to fit a helmet, all kinds of stuff. They're here. And the third part that I want to talk about is also there are handouts and leave-behinds that are print and ready to go. They literally can just print them out and go. They don't have to create anything new themselves. So it's very easy for them to look very prepared and to prepare themselves for what you're asking them to do. So I want to just show you a little bit about what they look like. This is the talking points addressing kids. It's actually a couple of pages long, but it starts off with how this resource can be used, the overall message, and a couple of ideas for opening remarks and some tips on how to move forward. And then it just lists bullet points that can either be read like a speech or pieced out one by one how they want to use them. So this is an example of one of the resources. And the last point I want to talk about with this page is that most of the resources were developed by NHTSA, but we've also taken some resources from the National Center's Safe Routes to School website, Walking Info, the International Police Mountain Bike Association, AAA, and a couple others. So I think these are really some good resources that you can trust and will fit within your program. And I just want to give you a little bit of background about how this resource was developed and why maybe you should trust it. We actually piloted this resource. We gave it to police officers across the country, and we actually got a really great response back. And even better, about 72% of the respondents had no experience with Safe Routes to School programs. So we really had a good sample to figure out, will this resource work? Not surprisingly, the results said that the resources were kind of their favorite areas to look at the website. They liked the guide on educating parents and talking points for kids, 10 facts every officer should know. They said these are the ones that they liked the most. And we also did some analytics, and we found out that these were where people spent the most time. The two things I want to point out that we're really excited about is that 94% of those with Safe Routes to School experience said they wished it had been available when they first got involved, and 85% of those without Safe Routes to School experience said they're now interested in getting involved. So it actually served a purpose that we hadn't really thought of that would pique their interest in Safe Routes to School. So we're really happy that once they get here, they're interested in getting involved. Okay, so we've talked about where they fit in your program as well as some resources that you can point them towards. So now I just want to share with you some tips and lessons learned that myself and my colleagues have found out when working with law enforcement officers. So the first thing you want to do is find the right person to get involved with your program or activity. And as we mentioned before, the spectrum can be quite broad. So here's 3 types of officers that you might want to target when you're trying to get someone involved in your program. The first is your community resource officer, and there's a couple reasons for this. One, they're more likely to be in your community. These are the groups or the officers that will come out and speak at homeowners association meetings or neighborhood watch meetings, and maybe their role is to report on crime statistics or some measures that you can take to improve security in your area. Another reason why you might want to talk to them is that usually they volunteer for this role, and it's meant to be a liaison. They're supposed to represent the department but also air any issues or talk to the department of things that are going on in your area. So they're meant to be that go-between. And the third reason why you might want to talk to them is because even if they may be overloaded at the moment, they're unable to work on your program right now, they may know someone in their department who can and who's really interested in that sort of thing. So they're a great person to touch base with. They're coming into your community because they want to touch base with you. I actually found out one of my colleagues knew that there was an officer who was really enthusiastic about bike and ped issues, so she went to their neighborhood watch meeting, even though it wasn't in her area, because she knew that she wanted to touch base with him and that he would have time to talk to her. So that's a really great strategy to adopt. The next group of officers that you might want to consider targeting would be a school resource officer. They know your children. They're there all day long. They might even help out with pickup and drop-off, so they may be familiar with some of the traffic issues that are immediately around the school. They probably also know the parents and their driving behaviors as well as the school bus drivers. So they're a great resource to have come and talk to your meeting or maybe brainstorm with them about what are some of the issues that are going on around the school. The third group that I would have you target would be patrol officers. I found out at a group with my one of my DC schools was that there was a patrol officer where the school was on his patrol, but he was patrolling it in the middle of the day when there aren't people coming in, dropping off their kids, and picking them up. So you would have preferred that they come either in the morning or afternoon hours. And so someone actually had the idea to track them down and said, hey, you know, if you could come in the morning, that's really when we most need your presence. And he said, fine. He's like, I don't mind how I shuffle my route. I just need to be able to hit all these areas in one day. So he was more than happy to just come and patrol and be a presence and enforce traffic laws in the morning. So that was a really great connection to make. I should also mention that every situation is going to be different. So these lessons learned may not work for everybody, but I just thought these would be helpful. The second tip that I would mention is that if you are having them come to a meeting, an event, or a workshop, put them first. Most often if they're coming outside of, say, a liaison role, they're coming on their own dime or possibly very limited overtime pay. So if you make it first, it shows how much you respect them and you respect their time, and they're most likely to be focused and available. So those are just some good tips that you may not have thought of or you may have. The third thing I would mention is finding a common ground. A lot of times police departments have initiatives where they want to reach out into the community and want to get them engaged, and Laura's actually going to talk about a lot of really great programs. So what you should do is find which programs could overlap with Safe Routes to School messages or needs so that they can do double duty. Maybe they could just tweak their community program or event so that it also addresses Safe Routes to School. The DARE programs, if that's still available in your area, and also McGruff, those are great ways to address safety of all kinds. So the third is point out funding possibilities. This is a very popular strategy that we found amongst our colleagues. They may not be aware of the Safe Routes to School program and that some of the programs that they want to start could be funded with Safe Routes to School funds. The first thing I would mention is talk to your state Safe Routes to School coordinator for eligible activities, and their contact information is on the National Center's website, which is www.saferoutesinfo.org. Check that out and figure out what activities are eligible, but ones that have worked in the past are overtime pay for Safe Routes to School activities, those mobile speed trailers, the ones that give you the feedback about your speed, training in terms of bicycle and pedestrian safety, and some others too. So you might want to tell them that there is a carrot out there. There are some incentives. And finally, I would offer them the ready-made materials that I showed you before. Showing them that there's little prep effort on their part will help them make that decision to come to your activity and to be a part of it. So with that, I will turn it over to Laura.
Okay, Katie, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Laura Aceta. I am the Weed and Seed Site Coordinator for the City of Easton. Can everybody see my screen? I'm assuming okay.
Yep, actually, we don't see your slides yet, but it should, yep, there you go.
Okay. Back to the slides. My name is Laura Aceta. I coordinate the Weed and Seed program for the City of Easton. I apologize because I have been battling a sinus infection for a couple of weeks, so I'm hoping you can understand what I'm saying. A little bit about myself first. I guess I've been in this position for about 2 years now. Prior to this, I worked for Communities That Care, which was funded by this Weed and Seed organization, and I worked actually inside the school system in Easton, inside the school district for 8 years. Coordinating a program that was funded through Weed and Seed that put me in touch with a lot of the same collaborators that we work with now. So the reason I'm participating this afternoon is to give you some ideas. Basically, I want to talk to you about what Weed and Seed is, and if possibly there is a Weed and Seed program in your state, in your city, in your community, it would be best to look to this organization because a lot of the law enforcement officers are already engaged in this. So there's my contact information up there first. We also have a Facebook page. It's very simple, and you probably could get the information on any Weed and Seed communities that are near you by Facebooking and just Facebooking Weed and Seed / whatever community is that you live in. This is just a photo of one of our officers doing an activity with the kids in the summertime. We actually have a van that goes around the community and will pick kids up and take them where they need to go. The police officers get overtime pay, actually, to do this. And it's something fun for the police officers. What I want to tell you a little bit about first is that there are federal Weed and Seed programs and there are state Weed and Seed programs. Mine happens to be funded through the state of Pennsylvania, but there are about 300 federal sites across the nation. And you can get more information on the federal programs to see if there's one in your state or near your community at the website that I have up there at the Community Capacity Development Office, and I put up there also their address and their phone number. And you can always contact me as well, and I can put you in touch with these programs. Across the state of Pennsylvania, if you happen to be in Pennsylvania, there are 17 sites. Where Weed and Seed initiated is, I'm explaining to you a little bit about weeding and seeding. Weeding is the actual police officers that are engaged in the program to remove the criminal element from the community. Seeding is once the criminal element is gone, you put back in, seed back into the community, positive asset-based programming. This happens to be a photo of our what's called the community police liaison. His name's Lieutenant Romali, and this was at an event with McGruff. Lieutenant Romali helps to coordinate all of the community actions and the community opportunities from the law enforcement side. So we work hand in hand. Where I coordinate the seeding functions, he coordinates the weeding functions. This is just a little bit of a schematic there so you can kind of understand. We have different committees that help to pull everything together. It's a huge collaboration. We have a gang task force specifically. Lieutenant Romali heads up the community policing division. We have a prevention, intervention, and treatment division, and we have a neighborhood restoration division. And these are all, I want to mention, volunteer. No one is paid in this organization besides the lieutenant and myself. And the lieutenant is paid by the city, so I am the only paid employee in the Weed and Seed program. So all of them report to this, basically, for lack of a better term, we call it an aid team, but a steering committee, give everybody their information and their ideas, and then we report up to the state or the feds, wherever it would be in your community. This is a photo of the lieutenant and some of our community police officers. I know Katie referred to your resource officers and community police officers because they are the ones out in the community that are engaged. This happens to be our bike division. So from summer through till early winter, actually, these guys are out. And it allows them the opportunity to make contact with the residents. I just wanted to quick show you a snapshot of our Weed and Seed community. Easton is about 3 square miles. The actual community that Weed and Seed focuses on is called a target area. It's about 1.5 square miles with about 14,000 people living in it, so it's quite populated. This is one of the programs that we had going on at the school. We have a school at inside our target area. It's named Paxenosa Elementary School, K through 4. Go there. That's just so you can understand sort of what our target area is about. I said about 1.27 square miles. The Easton School District is our school, and in there is Paxenosa, which has about 750 students that go to it. Some of our activities involve students, their grandparents, residents. The program that we were funded through Safe Routes to Schools is called, we call the No Phone Zone. Actually, this program initiated, there was a boy in the community just prior to this program that was actually killed by a bus. This target school, Paxenosa, sits right at the gateway to the entrance to our city on a very populous edge of the city. It's between, there's a football stadium, there's a few churches. It's the main thoroughfare into the city, so it's really quite heavy traffic there. And buses all park along 12th Street, buses park along Northampton Street when they let the kids out, so it's really quite an unsafe area. And there are many, many parents that drop their students off for school, and we live inside a community in which they could walk to school, but they don't because there's so much traffic. And after that boy was killed on the bus, it kind of alerted everybody to the fact that we need to be a little more safe, most especially around our school. So it's a very busy intersection. It's the kids that decided to do this program were 3rd and 4th graders. We actually met with the PTA, and it kind of came up that, well, what could we do to help keep our schools safer? And because texting and talking on a cell phone are such huge issues all over the country, we decided that the kids could gain a lot of leadership experience from this, and we could involve the school resource officers, we could involve the City of Easton police officers, and hopefully increase safety in the school zone, if not across the city. The goal of this program in the end was to have these students on the student council go to a city council meeting to present to the city council as to why the entire city should be a no-phone zone. So that's what we are working towards. It's been a little difficult in Pennsylvania because there is no state statute about texting or talking on your cell phone, but the kids are learning all about city government, and they are still working on this. And it's going actually very, very well. This is one of the Easton police officers. I want to mention to you that in Easton we have actual school police officers and we have city police officers. This happens to be one of the city police officers. There were school police officers there that night, but what happens in this program is that parents come and they sign a pledge. Whenever we have any kind of school functions, that happened to be the open house that night. This is the pledge that parents take to not text or talk. It's a very, very simple pledge, and actually we adapted this from Oprah's site, from her No Phone Zone program, and we basically tailor-fit it to our school with the Weed and Seed logo and the elementary school logo. The principal is very supportive of this program. There is a student, the teacher that's in charge of the student council makes sure that this pledge is presented to the teachers at the school and any other district staff. The district administrator and superintendent put it on the website so that any of the teachers and any of the parents in the school district could sign it. And then they either mail them in, they send them in with their children, and we keep a book of them actually here in the Weed and Seed office. And basically our intention is to just alert people, to at least in this school zone to stay off of your phone, no texting and no talking. The other thing we hope to gain from this is that the children at Paxenosa, K to 4, would learn that by the time they're driving in a car, that they would be a lot safer because they wouldn't be texting and driving or talking and driving. So the no phone zone activities take place all over the community. With the Weed and Seed volunteers take care of them when we're out at a community function. The teachers and the students take care of them when we're inside. And actually we overlap too because the kids and the teachers come to some of our community meetings. That one I said happened to be at an open house. There's about at least 1,200 parents came that night that we were able to have pledges signed. We hand out a sticker. We were able to purchase stickers and magnets with the money that we got from Safe Routes to Schools. And when a person signs a pledge, they get either a sticker or a magnet that goes on the outside of the car that says Paxenosa No Phone Zone, or they get a sticker that they can put inside the window of their car. And that way, when you're driving around the community, you can see all the people physically that support the no texting and no talking. There are, outside the school, 2 very large banners that we were able to purchase with the funds from the Safe Routes to School program that say Paxenosa No Phone Zone. They hang one in front of the school and one on the side of the school, which are actually the 2 barriers to the school no phone zone. So we take these pledges to community meetings. We send them out to churches. They're available on the websites. We sent them to all the city and county employees through the mayor and the county executive. The student council presents them at other student council meetings in other schools within the district. They go to the Key Club. The National Honor Society kids help us to publicize them. The newspaper publicized it. We engaged all the PTAs, school resource officers, and the Easton police officers. So it's a good way to be able to involve definitely your police division. This is a poster contest that we were able to do with the kids. This was wildly popular. We basically took the template from the magnet and the sticker and put it on a piece of paper, and each homeroom teacher sent this out. The one nice thing about this is that the police officers, our community police officers, go to the school in the morning and basically stand outside, make sure everybody is safe, and basically just engage parents and teachers and kids in conversation. So they were able to talk about the poster contest. Do you need any supplies? You know, how is yours going? How are you decorating yours? Also, the crossing guards are able to talk to the kids about this. So this was a very popular event, and then we were able to put in the paper the names of all the kids that won the poster contest, as well as hang the posters up at school. Some tips for involving law enforcement. I'm kind of segueing here from our actual Safe Routes to Schools No Phone Zone program into how you can take this into your community to build upon it to make a community safe, you know, in a larger aspect. So my few suggestions here, and this is kind of how Weed and Seed's program works, is, you know, the premise of it is if you're trying to involve law enforcement in your community, law enforcement officers are charged with keeping your community safe. Well, at the same time, they're people. They're people. Police officers are people. School resource officers are people. They have family, and they run towards the danger while everyone else runs away from the danger. So we respect that above and beyond, and we try to make it safe for them, which is why we engage the total community. So we start at the top. The mayor and the chief of police, we work with them hand in hand. We make sure that they know that we keep them safe, and we appreciate them keeping us safe. We work heavily with the Police Athletic League. If you have this in your community, it's an excellent resource. There are numbers of retired police officers that are willing to come and, you know, I shouldn't say numbers of them, but it's definitely a place to start. You know, when people retire, they have more time to volunteer. So we look to the PBA, we look to the FOP. Our Police Athletic League runs a golf tournament that we help them with for our police officers who pay money to come and golf because we give them an opportunity to relax. We give them prizes, we give them a meal, and they in turn fund some of the programs that we do in the community. So it's a win-win for everybody. We have trading cards made up with all 63 officers in the police department have a trading card, and they can hand these out to kids. They can hand them out to parents, and it's just a nice way of saying, here's my picture, and here's some information about me that I am a person. Favorite color, favorite baseball team, whatever you want to put on it, just like a baseball card. We ask the police officers, what do they need help with? What is it that they need from the community? What is it they need from the kids? And we work together to achieve those goals. We encourage resident participation at all times, and we build trust with the police officers. We encourage student participation. Katie had mentioned to you about the Good Ticket program. Our officers do exactly that. When they see someone in the community doing something good, students helping other students across the street, students listening to their parents when they're at a program out in the community, students helping an older person sweeping their sidewalk or shoveling their snow. They can hand them out a ticket, and on the ticket our local businesses participate, Subway, Dunkin' Donuts, and the kids are able to go there and get a couple dollars worth of whatever it is that they'd like. Encouraging neighborhood mobilization is key because when you have a safer community, your law enforcement officers are more willing to go out and, I should say, interact with the neighbors because they know it's a win-win. It's everybody works hand in hand. Increasing public safety is good for everybody. The community has specific needs. So as Katie had mentioned too, what works in our community won't necessarily work in your community, but you can tweak it and really think outside the box as to what would work. This is an example of one of the activities that works in our community. We have drug dogs. The officers bring the drug dogs out in the summertime into the football stadium, and we gather all the kids together for our summer programs, and we give them a chance to get up close and personal with the dogs. Everybody likes animals. The kids love the dogs, and it gives them a chance to see what the actual police officers do with the dogs, that the dog isn't just a pet, that the dog is out there keeping them safe by looking for the drugs, and it's a great thing to be able to watch if you've never seen it. These are our Guardian Angel team, and again, if you have these in your community, or if you have local chapters of the Guardian Angels, if you have national chapters, you can easily get in touch with them through their websites. Most, I shouldn't say all, but Weed and Seed programs could get you probably in touch with these people as well. And these are the eyes of the community. These are not vigilantes. They don't arrest anybody. Excuse me. They have no powers to, put anyone in jail. They are just extra eyes for the police that keep everyone in the community safe. And these people completely volunteer. So if you're able to engage them in your program, it's a really great opportunity for involving law enforcement because everyone's working together. This is just an example of something that the Weed and Seed program did that really doesn't cost a whole lot of money. You could do it on a piece of paper. These ones happen to be a magnet. That's the Weed and Seed office number at the top. But what we do is we make up this magnet with all of the numbers that are that would be used to solve an issue without having to call the police or without having to escalate to the point where it becomes a violent situation or it becomes a need for law enforcement, whether it be school or whether it be in the community. So the emergency number is on there. All of the numbers are on there: protection from abuse, the Social Security number, voters registration, homeless support, crime victims council, graffiti reports, school district numbers, police and fire numbers. The police officers carry these with them so that they can give them out when they're out on a call, when they're just chit-chatting, when they're mingling in the community. Most of the people in this community have this magnet, and I tell everyone to keep it on their refrigerator because if they need help, it's right at their fingertips, and they know who to call. And they don't, sometimes the police end up with calls that they really don't need to respond to that could have easily been taken care of by the actual people that it needed to be routed to. This happens to be the captain. I know Katie mentioned you can involve the executives in your police department. The captain comes out on a regular basis, dresses in plain clothes, and puts on a show for the kids with the dogs. These are some of the retired, actually it's one of the retired police officers. The other one is a school police officer, and the other was a community police officer. And we were all together at trick-or-treat night, which we held in the park. The police officers from the fire department come out, and they hand out candy to the kids. They stand out in the park, and everybody comes together in the community, residents alike, puts up a table, and it's a win-win. So just very briefly, some of the other programs that my community in Easton runs. This is a picture of the golf tournament. These are all police officers, believe it or not. They're just having a good time. Letting their hair down, so to speak. This is one of the fire officers playing checkers with the kids at the park in the summer. Some of our weeding programs, we have safety meetings. Block Watch is a great way to involve your police officers in the community and get them talking about some of the issues with the residents. We have problem-oriented police patrols, which are proactive patrols. So before it gets to the point where you need to arrest someone, the police officers are able to say, here's that number you need to call. We also have a very popular Cops and Community program, which if you need information on this, I'd be happy to give to you. It's through the National Coalition Building Institute, NCBI, very easily pulled up on the web, and we could definitely put you in touch with a facilitator. And what he does is he holds focus groups in the community, and the end result is building a community resource team made up of police officers, law enforcement, other aspects of law enforcement, maybe probation, could be city council people, and residents that are able to address an issue before it escalates into a problem. Again, these are just some of the kids out at the park in the summertime. Some of our seating programs, we do a newsletter, another great way to involve law enforcement because you can do profiles of your police officers, you can do question and answers, you can do programs. We run a fatherhood program that the police help us with. They make contact with some of the guys when they're coming out of jail, and they're able to refer them to the program. The No Phone Zone, we run a big park program in the summer called Summer Nights, where when the kids get out of school, we are able to feed them in the park and have an activity, all of which is volunteer. I want to add, there is no one paid here. Everyone volunteers in this community, and it works in this community. It's sometimes difficult to engage volunteers, but once you have one little success, it leads to another success. That Summer Nights program, there's a police officer there every night, and the chief has allocated an officer to come up. They get in the dunk tank, they wear their bathing suits, they bring their motorcycles, they bring the dogs, and it's a real nice way to have one-on-one with kids and with adults. And in this case, the kids are able to talk to the police officers about what's going on their street. Adults are able to, give them information to help keep everybody safe. We support programs at the community center. We have programs where the police officers come up to the community center and talk to the kids. We have family nights so that the parents can participate. And I won't get into everything so I don't take up too much time, so we have some time for question and answers. But there's numerous neighborhood cleanups, community gardens, mural projects, neighborhood sit-outs, lots of ideas. This was Neighborhood Day. This is one of our pastors and the president from the Police Athletic League out at the park in the summer. That's just basically our summer program I was telling you about, where we have 48 collaborators last year we did. 48 collaborating volunteers, agencies, independents, faith-based organization. We served over 530 individuals, had 229 volunteer sign-ins, distributed 240 backpacks, had 2,880 hours of volunteer time. So you can see it's very popular here. And again, we're in the 7th year of this program, so the actual program began when one of the police officers and a woman in her wheelchair used to go out to the park and just basically bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches out there for the kids and play games with them. And it spiraled 7 years later into this. That's one of the police officers. He's playing basketball with one of the kids out at the park in the summer. And this goes on throughout the school year, too. This is the dip and dance. We have a local pool. The police officers go out to the pool at night, stop by, will wear their bathing suits, jump in the pool. This is the after-school program. There's about 40 kids there now that come from our neighborhood. These are some of the other people. We get T-shirts made for everybody. There's lots of ways to engage people that don't necessarily want to, come out and volunteer. They might just be able to wear a T-shirt. Your police officers can all wear T-shirts. They can wear patches on their sleeves. We have a weed and seed patch that the police officers can put on all of their sleeves just so it says, we're a part of a greater community. This is one of the trainings that the National Coalition Building Institute does. We all just get together and talk a lot about diversity and respecting one another. This is one of the mural projects that we did. This is one of the walking programs. The National Guard happened to be there that day, so we engaged our military as well. And this is our mayor out at the park in the summer. And that's about what I have for you this afternoon.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, both Laura and Katie. We do have a number of questions for you folks. Just give me 1 second here. I will take the screen over and post some information for folks. There we go. Okay, so Laura, I think I'm going to start with you because we did have a number of questions that came in regarding some of the programs that you talked about. So just to start out with the No Phone Zone, you mentioned that you got funding for this program from Safe Routes to School for the materials. And where did you find these funds? Can you give people some more information on that?
Actually, I had someone had emailed me a link from my state organization to the Safe Routes to Schools grant opportunity that was announced, and we applied for the funding. It was $1,000.
Oh, that's great.
We applied after that boy was killed. We applied for the funds, and we were awarded them, and it kind of just snowballed from there.
No, that's great. And actually, going back to the boy that was killed, someone just wanted some clarification. Was he texting or talking on the phone when he was hit?
Oh, he was riding his bicycle.
He was riding his bicycle. Was the bus driver doing so?
No.
No. Okay.
But he was in the school zone. He was right in front of the school.
Yeah, it's very, very sad.
Yep.
And again, we received a number of questions on the no phone zone, so bear with me here. I'm just going to try and work through them.
In process.
Yeah, it is a great program. So one of the other questions is it still effective in a state where it's illegal to talk/text and drive? Do you know? Have you thought about that? Or
is it? I would think it's better done in a state like that, because if you have a state statute backing you up, then your police officers could actually write tickets if they saw someone on the phone. In our state, in Pennsylvania, there is no state statute, so they can't actually write a ticket. At this point, it's more of an awareness campaign, hoping that that they will get off of their phone just because they see the signs, and B, the kids will learn that by the time they're driving, they won't be doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Okay, and again, sticking with the no phone zone, I think this is the last one for that question, unless some new ones have come in. In regards to the program, let's see if I get top here. How effective were these measures with law enforcement numbers? Was the enforcement more visible once the programs were enacted? This person mentions that the problem they're having with their school is that officers tend to be distracted by the high school students interacting with them at peak hours.
Well, in our case, the high school is not located near this school, and the high school kids get out earlier than this school does, so that high school traffic is generally done before these kids get out of school.
Okay, so then you don't really have to deal with that issue.
Yeah, no, there's no overlap here.
Okay, and here's one more interesting question for you that's I have you on the hook here. This person writes in, as a Canadian, they're not familiar with any weed and seed programs up in Canada. Do you know of any programs in Canada that might be similar, or and are the weed and seed programs all not-for-profit that you know of?
Yes, they are all non-for-profit. They're not necessarily 501c3s, but they are non-profit. However, and I'm not aware of anything in Canada, no. However, whatever would be the closest state, I would assume they certainly could get the information from that state. And weed and seed, just because it doesn't have to be, you can take that information from anywhere on the website and adapt it to your same community, because it's basically just community mobilization.
Okay. That's great. Okay, now these questions I'm going to throw out there to both you and Katie. So, Katie, chime in if you feel like you're best suited to answer this.
Okay.
First question I have here is this person says, they're working on a bicyclist's guide for local police departments. Any special items that you would suggest they put in there from a Safe Routes to School perspective?
Oh, wow, that's a really great resource. I hope you'll share that when you're done with it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, things to keep in mind. I think anything that talks about how to cross the street safely, a lot of kids seem to know how to ride either on the sidewalk if it's permitted for their age group or along the roadway. Those types of enforcement issues haven't always been the issue. It's more like how to cross effectively. Do you want the students to disembark off their bicycle before they do that? Just kind of how you want to treat intersection enforcement issues. And then also just, I think Laura would probably agree with this, that keeping it on the positive as best you can with kids. Negativity can backfire, so the more tips that you can include to keep the police officer as a positive figure in their lives, that would be great.
And pictures. Pictures are good.
Okay, now this question...
Can I just make one other suggestion?
Oh, sure.
Anytime that you have the community engaged in anything that you're doing, it works because somebody can identify with and say, hey, I did that, or, and then pass that word along. So if you have the opportunity for someone to actually physically draw a picture or write something in that actually came from them or from a student, like I said, the poster contest or the logo contest, whatever it is, then you have somebody entrenched in your program.
Great, thank you. And we have 3 different questions kind of touching on this subject. So this person actually asks, with all of the economic kind of downfall that we've been having lately. Is it difficult to get local law enforcement on board because of the budget cuts? And then as kind of a follow-up to that, do you have any suggestions on trying to help the police find funding sources to engage or find funding sources to engage police officers outside of their regular duties? It's a tough one.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to gather all that together.
I think I missed the second part of that question because I was thinking about the first part of the question.
Okay,
actually,
well, we'll handle the first part first, and then I can re-ask the second part.
Okay. I think actually that when you're talking about budget cuts and stuff, that it's actually easier to engage police officers, because if the funding is being cut to pay somebody to do a job, it doesn't mean the job doesn't need to be done. It just means that you have to figure out another way to do it. So in order to mobilize the community, I said if the community is proactive about what's going on, police and administration can't help but listen and can help but be thankful for that, because it makes their job easier. So the more community engagement you have, the more, I don't want to say pressure, but the more, response you might get from the police officers, because they have to take note of, oh, look, there's hundreds of people out here that are, willing to do this or willing to help with this or want this.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is trying to figure out how whatever your strategy or program is fits into kind of like their daily routine that isn't affected by the budget cut. They may not be able to come to your evening meeting, but maybe they'll be able to come during the day to talk to kids. Or maybe they'll, like I mentioned with the patrol officer, maybe they can change their route in such a way that they're going to the same places, but they're prioritizing the schools when they'd be most effective. Because likely they'll still have programs and events and stuff that they have to do. So if you can figure out a way to make it have a safe routes to school spin, that's one way that you don't have to add to their workload.
Yeah, no, that's great. Those are definitely great suggestions. I think energizing the community is a great way to try and kind of keep it a priority. And just, I think you kind of answered this, but one of the other folks was just saying, suggesting or looking for maybe suggestions on any funding sources to engage police officers outside of their regular duties. So maybe when they're off duty, just trying to get them as kind of a community member to be involved. Have you had any experience with that? Or
generally, the National Police Athletic League organization offers funding for different types of programs for officers outside of their normal duties, whether it's through an athletic event. It doesn't have to be police athletic. It can be police activity. So it could be any activity that's going on in your community. It doesn't have to be an athletic event.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean there are opportunities for training. Like, I mean, that might be outside of their current realm, but something they want to get involved with if they can get that funded from an outside source. And Safe Routes to School funding has gone towards training them either for how to do a crossing guard program or how to effectively enforce current bicycle and pedestrian laws. That's another way you can possibly get that in.
Right, and speaking of crossing guards, I'll use that to jump into my next question. This person's asking, can crossing guards issue citations or just recommendations?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I think it depends on what you mean by citation. I actually had a group in D.C. where their student patrols issued citations that said you are parked illegally or you're acting illegally, and we would appreciate a $5 donation to our local PTA. So that you can do.
That's
those types
cool.
of things. Yeah, wasn't that creative? I thought that was really smart. One girl even gave it to her mom, which was also effective. So, I mean, like those types of things. Another effective thing that crossing guards could do, for instance, if you see some unsafe behavior, would be to point out what the behavior is that's wrong and remind them that they're in a safe route or in a school zone and why that's important, like more educational than, say, negative. But you want to make sure that when you train your crossing guards on how to hand them out, I don't want them chasing down any cars or putting themselves in danger. When it comes to legal citations, that has to be done by a police officer, someone who carries a badge and has been sworn in to carry out that duty. So now, if your crossing guard is a police officer, they can do both, and in some cases they are. I mean, a lot of police officers or departments that are really financially healthy will, as part of their community outreach programs, they will perform crossing guard duties in, say, the morning or afternoon. So that's the only situation where, yes, they can.
I would even suggest, too, that, like Katie said, keeping it fun and educational. Instead of handing out a bad citation, they hand out good citations where, someone did follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, let's see. This is an interesting question. This person is asking, are the police typically the ones who conduct bike education or bike rodeos? Could you expand on that a little?
It's not always. I mean, I'll tell you that a lot of times when I've seen bike rodeos, a police officer will get involved because I think it's an easy way for them to insert themselves. And I should mention that NHTSA is pushing a new resource that will be coming out shortly, and instead of bike rodeos, they're calling them cycle safety clinics. So be aware that those are the same things. But, I mean, I've seen local advocacy groups do it as well. The Washington Area Bicycle Association will put on bike rodeos without police involvement. It just seems to be like that's an easy way to get them involved, say on a weekend or outside of the normal school hours.
Yeah, and in our community, it's done actually by a local bicycle shop, Genesis Bicycles, and the fire department actually helps with the rodeo. But the police are definitely involved, but more it's more from the community end.
More local. It's funny, as I asked this question, I got a few comments from different organizations around the country saying, we do them.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think it is a local community thing, too, as well.
Sure.
Okay, and the last question, since we are running out a bit of time here, and this one is kind of a big question, but what are the legal ramifications of communities establishing volunteer crossing guard programs?
Whew. Well, it's going to be different everywhere. I mean, I would say that unless you have a police officer sponsoring the program or training the guards, they should not be directing traffic. That's one of the things that the National Center pushes, is that really they're supposed to be out there to make the students more visible and to assist them to cross. I mean, it's one reason why they're out there is to make sure that the children cross safely, they behave correctly. But it's also to remind the drivers that, you know, you may not be able to see these little youngsters, but there's someone out there trying to cross the street safely. But not to stop traffic, direct traffic, all that kind of stuff, unless they've been trained and given that authority to do so. So in terms of legal ramifications, I would look into it further before encouraging anyone to direct traffic.
I think that's a great suggestion. And Laura, do you want to add anything before we wrap up?
I agree.
Yeah. and in regards to that also, I just want to mention that we are having a Crossing Guard webinar. I believe it's called Lessons from Florida's Crossing Guard program, and I believe that's on April 12th. So you can go to our website at America Walks, which is posted up on the screen for you right there, to find out more information on that. And I guess that's it. We're coming up to 2 o'clock. This was a wonderful webinar. I want to thank both of our speakers, Laura and Katie.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that everyone was able to join us today, and I hope that you join us next month for our webinar. And I guess with that, I'll say good afternoon.